So before we get started, this video is little, I don't want to say unprofessional, but it's a little rough. That's just because I was kind of doing it as a test and just kept going and going. And in the end, I thought, well, I covered everything. Everything's in there. So I just decided not to re-record it, mostly because I'm tired. Now, at the end of it, you're going to learn everything that you need to know about image optimization in WordPress. But I'm thinking about doing another video where I go over some more advanced techniques, mostly doing with other video image formats. Those are a little bit trickier to pull off and would really only help in certain circumstances. So that's coming later if people are interested in it. Anyway, sit back, relax, enjoy, and let me know what you think about this in the comments. Thanks. Okay, so let's do a little bit of image optimization. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out what your images need to be. In other words, let's say you've got a standard WordPress installation like this, and then you want to create a new post, and then we need to add an image. Okay, so is the image just going to be sort of a default image size, restricted, or is it going to be like a header image where it's or maybe a background image or something like that where it needs to be full width? These things matter when you're talking about image optimization because a smaller image needs to be scaled to fit a certain size. You don't need to make it 1,000 pixels wide if the maximum width is only going to be 500 pixels. So that's the first thing to figure out. Now that can be a little bit tricky. You don't really know that off the top of your head probably. So let's just try an example. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to look here at these files, and we're just going to pick one of these. Now, this file is too big. Oops. Now, what do we do about that? Okay, so it's a stock image that I downloaded. It's already too large to even upload. It's this image here. Okay, that's way too big. Look at the size of this thing, right? If I zoom in on it, it's massive. Okay, now what do we need to do? So what I like to do is go to Squish. So Squish.app is a tool that was developed by Google to help you compress content. Google and other people, I'm sure, down here. So now if you go here, you drag and drop your picture in. Okay, now what do we got? So we've got still this massive image. Is way too big, but it's telling us already that it's going to compress it down 78% in size. So the image started out at over 6 megabytes. It's going to go down to 1.42. So that's a massive improvement already. Now, this is going to show you like a before and after. Now, if I slide this to the right, you can see her face is much more detailed before the compression. We're losing some of that detail. If this is going to be a really important image that needs to have a strong visual effect, it's not a background image, it's a hero shot, something like that, you probably want to bump this quality slider up to like an 85. It'll still compress the image, but it won't be as bad visually in the end. So here we can see it's, a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit more artifacts are visible, but it's not bad, it's usable, and it's much, much smaller. Now, the other problem with this image is it's way too big. So we click resize and we figure out what dimensions we want. Now, this is where knowing the size of your image space matters. Like, is it going to be just in a block, or is it going to be a full width or whatever? Our general rule is this: we never use images bigger than 1920 pixels wide. There's just no reason to. Even if someone has an Ultra HD or a 4K display, which more and more people do, it'll still look good at those resolutions, even if it's only 1920 pixels wide. Any more than that, and you start to really hurt yourself with people with lower resolutions, because it's going to be so much more data to download for no real gain. So anyway, one thing that Squish doesn't do very well is once you do that resize, it goes all fuzzy and looks wonky in the little visual tool here. Don't worry about that. Just download it. Now you can see we've gone from 6 megabytes to half a megabyte. It's a massive improvement. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open that up in the browser and look at that. Now, look at that. So, crisp, clean, resized, optimized, looks great. Now, we can take this, and I'll just reload the editor because I want a fresh start here, and just drag and drop the file back into this. And now what we've got is an image that could be made even smaller if we went ahead and compressed it down to the 75 level. Now, I don't want to do that because I think we're already good enough where we're at for the demo purposes. But if you were using this on a live website, 500K is still too big. 300K is probably still too big, unless this is like a really important image on your site where you really want this to pop. You know, this has to look great. It sells your product, sells your brand, whatever. You have to balance that. There are other options here. WebP is a good option if you want to go down to an even lower file size. The problem with WebP is this. It's not compatible with all major browsers. So you can see WebP compatibility is still not there for Internet Explorer. Okay, who cares about Internet Explorer? But it's still kind of partially supported on Safari. That's a problem. That's where you get into a real issue. If it weren't for Safari, we could all just use WebP today. But because of that, it's still limited use. You know, it's saying globally 87% of the internet up to 90% can use WebP. But it's not 100%, it's not 99%. So until Safari sort of catches up, we're stuck with some of these older formats. Now, WebP in this case doesn't make a massive difference. I mean, it's a big difference statistically, but not a massive difference. But what it does do on smaller images is make a huge difference. Like if it's, you know, a 100K image and it goes down to 20, that's a massive difference, especially if you've got 10 or 20 of those. WebP version 2 I haven't really messed with very much, but you can see here it gets it down even smaller. I'm not sure what the benefit of that would be or what the issues of that would be and what the compatibility would be across different browsers. Now, they have different options here for different formats. Generally, this is the one that you're going to go with. If you want it to be transparent, have a transparent background, and your image is transparent already, then you're going to need to use like browser PNG or something, or Oxy PNG. But for right now, we're dealing with just an image that's got, you know, background content in it. Okay, so now we've optimized that image a bit. It's better. Now, let's go in and try uploading that again. It should work this time. Let's see if they've... Yeah, just do it this way. There we go. Okay, there's our image that allowed us to upload. It's 1920 by 1280, what we resized it to. Let's select it. Okay, there it is. It's in there. Okay, great. Now let's publish it. Yes, I want to publish it. Duh. View post. And there's our little post with our optimized image. So now, like I said, this one would have been over 6 megabytes. Now it's 500K. So that's much, much better. Again, you don't want to put a 500K file up on your site. This is just for as an example. But now, let's say that this image were going to be like a header image. Let's see here. How do you do that in... This is how you do... Oops. This is how you do a featured image in Gutenberg. Now, where is that stupid header thing? You kind of have to forgive me with this because I don't actually use Gutenberg on a daily basis because I really can't stand it. It's kind of horrible. But let's try this. That's a heading. Large header with a heading. Okay, let's try that. So now we don't want this, so change that to that. Now let's do replace open media library. Here we go with this. Now we've got this. Select. Now, because we did the what's this? Okay, that's their way of like doing top center alignment, top right alignment, that kind of stuff. Because we resize this to just 1920, we can use this as a full width header and it'll be fine. So I click update. although technically that's not really full width, but you get the idea. Now we've got a big old image. So this is the featured image version that's showing up there. I don't love the implementation of that, but that's okay. And then here's the one we just did. So let's do this. Let's go get out of that. Remove the featured image just because that looks kind of dumb. And now, so a fun post, great, that looks good. This looks fine. Now, let's say, all right, well, we don't need this image to be that big. That file size is just too big. So let's figure out how big we need that image to be. An easy way of doing that is installing an extension like the Page Ruler extension in Chrome, and then just drag a box around it. Oh, okay, well, the width on that's about 613 pixels. So let's just say that's 610. So what I do is I go into Squish there, and I'm going to take my original stock image, put it in here. I'm going to resize that to 610 pixels, like that. Again, it goes all fuzzy, but don't worry about that. Now I've got the option here. I'm going to put this to 85 because it's no longer a hero shot. It just doesn't have to be pixel perfect. I'd rather it be smaller. So now we've got it down to 76K. Now that's about where you should be for an image of that size. It's not as optimized as it could be. If we went to WebP, be even lower, and there's other techniques that you can do to make it even smaller than that, but just for everyday use, this is going to be fine. So let's go in and figure out how to replace this thing. Ugh, this is such an awful interface, just terrible. All right, we're going to do this. There's your new image. That one's the 600K version of it. Okay, so now we're good here. So, should have now no featured image. Here's our smaller version of it. If we open it in a new tab, we can see that's it, 600K. 600 pixels wide, 610. And then we've got our hero version of it. And now we've got a 50K image and a 500K image. And we can feel good that we've made a significant improvement in what would have otherwise been 6 megabytes worth of images on this page. Now we've got two versions, but they're 550K total. So that's a big improvement. Now, that's great if you're just doing one little post and that's all you've got. But what if you've got a whole site's worth of images? Well, let's figure out how to address that. So we want to go and install a plugin. Now, there's about 1 million plugins that will do this. But I like EWWW Image Optimizer. So let's go and click that and install that. There's a different one here called Cloud. That one processes the images in the cloud as opposed to on your server. It's slower, so I use this one. Now, they both do basically the same thing. If you go into the settings here, you'll see that it's got all the default settings enabled. The default settings are going to have what's called pixel perfect optimization enabled. That basically means it's not going to change the visual look of the content at all. Now, by default, it does strip all metadata. So metadata is the stuff that's attached to the file that describes it, shows where it was taken, the photo was taken, who took the photo, if they added that, when it was taken, all that. This is going to strip all that. So if you run like a photo blog or a photography website or something like that, you're going to want to uncheck this because you probably want to leave the metadata. Everybody else probably doesn't need it. There may be some legal reasons to have it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Check with your legal counsel. But on the other hand, most of the time, this is just superfluous data. Now, this is the default options you get without an API key. You're going to see between like a 5 and a 10% improvement in quality when you upload media files to the library. So let's try that real quick. Now, here if we look at the library, and you can't see this, you can't see anything in this mode. You have to click list mode to see the data. It says it's got 3 images to compress. And then here it says it's got 7 sizes to compress. Now, why does it have multiple sizes? Well, that's because WordPress does this thing where it has different sizes for images based on thumbnails and all kinds of other stuff that it does. It's sort of irritating, and I wish they would get rid of it or at least pare it down some. But that's what it does. So if we go and we click Optimize Now, and we've got a 74.2K image, let's click Optimize Now. 3 sizes compressed, plus, okay, reduced by 0, reduced by 6.5, reduced by 4. Now, why are these such small reductions? Well, for one, we already optimized it, so that's why. And two, there's not much left to do with these images without degrading the quality. The reason it didn't do anything on the full-sized image is because we already done that one. The medium and the thumbnails were generated by WordPress, so they had a little bit of headroom for optimization. So that's why you see a slightly smaller version of those two. Almost all the time, you're going to be using the full-sized image. Now, there are instances where the thumbnails are used or the medium version is used, but if you don't choose that or use a development tool that does that for you automatically, it's going to be the full-sized image. So one thing we'll do sometimes is we'll go into, not that, they have it in 2 places for some reason, here, and disable these, because we don't want to sit here and waste API credits if we're using API credits on optimizing images that will never be used. So a lot of times we'll go and disable all of these or all but thumbnail or something like that just to save the API credits. Now, let's go and look here real quick back at the library. We reduced those, but that wasn't a big a deal. Let's say you had thousands of images. Well, you go to bulk optimize. You click scan for unoptimized images, click optimize images. It optimizes all your images for you. Not as fast as this because this is on a local host environment, but pretty quickly. So then you've got 7 images compressed here. You click that, you can see, again, no savings on this one because we already compressed it. Now, Squish does a better job than EWWW with compression, almost across the board, even with an API key, just because it's just made to do higher levels of compression. Whereas EWWW plays it a little bit safer. It's not going to go and overly compress because it doesn't want to ruin your images. Whereas Squish is basically assuming you know what you're doing and will compress them fairly rigorously in order to get the file size down. They're more concerned about file sizes. Okay, so now let's go and take a deeper look at EWWW, because I think this is really where the best time is going to be spent, because we'll use Squish when we have a certain image or handful of images that we need to just get down to the smallest size possible with really granular control. And that's great if it's a home page or a really highly trafficked page or a handful of pages that get a lot of traffic or product pages, things like that. You need to do that type of manual work on those. Otherwise, you're pretty much living inside of a tool like this where you can go through and bulk optimize content. So when you install it by default, it's going to just do this, what it calls pixel first. You can't choose the other options. The other options are where the better compression lies. You can't get very much, like I said, 5 to 10%, and that's okay, but it's not going to really make a huge difference in your overall page weights on your site. The real benefit is in these. So we've got an API key. Let me get that set up here real quick. Now, what we'll do here is we'll do an example of this where we go through and we optimize images using the higher level of optimization available with EWWW. But we're also going to compare that against what might happen if you had your images manually optimized in Squish. So here I've added the key. You can see, all right, now it's saying, oh, it's going to do more. Not 100%. Why? Okay, well, it's choosing Premium, not Premium Plus. And here, it doesn't choose Premium at all for whatever reason. It defaults to the other one. So let's hit Premium on both and hit Save. Now we're at 65. Now, if we want to get higher up in that, we go to Premium Plus. Here's the deal. Premium Plus, in my opinion, overly compresses. In other words, it's a lossy format, which means you're going to lose image quality. And when we tested this a while back, Premium Plus was a little too much quality loss for our taste. So we usually stick with Premium on both of these, which loses a little quality, but it's not terrible. So doing both of those, you're in better shape there. Now, resize. this is cool because this allows you to automatically resize your images when you upload them. Now, this is also dangerous because if you bulk optimize, it can bulk resize. If you've already optimized once and you optimize again after you change this setting, it's going to use your credits again because it's going to resize them and then optimize the resized versions. So just be careful. Think it through. Now, this is a new site, so we're not worried about that. So we do 1920. That's the maximum width we want to see here on this site. We don't want anything bigger because we just can't imagine a scenario. Now, it's not going to resize images that are smaller than this, only images that are bigger than this. Now, like I said before, we don't want to do any optimization for all these weird sizes that are never going to be used. We don't care about PDF optimization. So let's hit save there and move on from that. Now, okay, so we've got all that set up. That's great. Now, what's next? Let's try testing an image. So let's add an image. Now I'll add one that we haven't done yet. I'll do this one. Let's do that. So let's go ahead and optimize that. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll drag and drop this over here to this. Put that in there. Oops, too big, right? Okay. Now, this is probably not going to be an issue on your site. You're probably not going to see that problem because your upload limits won't be as small as this. But if you do, then you know what to do now because you go to Squish, you take your image, mine was about 3 megs, and you go ahead and just optimize it with Squish. You know, go ahead and do that. Do like a first pass at Squish. Now, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to make it small enough to upload. So something under 2 megabytes is all I need to do. Just for the sake of this demo. Okay, that's fine. Now, we got this image here. It's small enough to upload now. So let's try that. So we're going to take this and we're going to upload it right there like that. Boom. There it goes. Now, it's taking a little longer to upload because it's automatically being optimized by EWWW. So, the image that I initially uploaded was very, very large in the sense of pixel dimensions. It was really big. So, it was 5472, so 5,472 pixels wide. So, this was the original image here. Boom, huge, right? Okay. So, what EWWW did was it reduced it down to 1920 and compressed it. So it resized and compressed at the same time. So what you can see here is now we went from an image that was 1.3 megabytes, 93% smaller, down to 93K. Huge improvement. Now let's check and see what that image looks like. There. So 1920. That's it. Full width right there, zoomed all the way in. Great. Looks great. No problems with the quality. And we've got an image that's totally usable and massively smaller. So that's a little overview of some of the optimization techniques that we use. We go into more detail sometimes in this. Maybe we'll do a more advanced video in the future that shows more steps in the process. Maybe we'll get into some WebP stuff and how to use that effectively because there are tools out there that will let you show WebP for everybody but Safari users and Internet Explorer users basically. And then for those, it has like the backup JPEG copy of the image there available. So that's an option if you really want to get detailed. Also, you'll probably notice that when you run reports, you get messages about image scaling where it's saying, oh, this needs to be scaled down. That's the pixel thing I was talking about before where, you want the image to be 600 pixels if it's going to be 600 pixels on the page. That's what that's talking about. So there are additional steps to go through here, but this would give you more than enough to work on initially to get through the basic optimization steps and get your site smaller and faster. So, I hope that helped. Image optimization can be a little tricky. You gotta spend some time practicing and doing some test runs and optimization utilities. We used EWWW. That's what we like. There's lots of options out there. I'll link in the video description to some image optimization tests we did with different WordPress plugins. And, if this is something you feel comfortable doing with, by all means. If it's not, and you need WordPress maintenance services, reach out to us at Barrel Roll. Go barrelroll.com. That's what we're here for.